poll, Fiona?
No, we can't do polls on StreamYard.
Okay.
That was Amy's has a better program.
Okay, cool. We're live. We're alive. It's interesting light in here right now because it's nighttime here already. It's so strange that it's 6 o'clock at night. It's like pitch dark. We're getting close to the shortest day of the year. So it's a very strange feeling to see it so dusky. Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is the new office, the new space. Still have to tone down the sound a little. It's still a little bouncy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because of the old
Yep.
title.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking of some kind of decorative panels or something on the back here to help.
Yeah.
We have 16 people watching.
So if you've got new folks here, if people have logged in, if you want to go in the chat and you want to let us know where you're logging in from, bon dia for lots of folks that are in the US right now, because I know that it could be quite early for you, or at least you're in the middle of your day. We are here. It is 6 o'clock in Portugal. So we are finishing up a beautiful but a little bit windy Saturday. So hello. Great to see you, and just keep letting us know where you're from. Where we are sitting right now is in Alcobaça, and we're on the Silver Coast. We're very, very close to Nazaré, which is getting ready to gear up for the first big waves of the season. So if you're not familiar with it, Nazaré is famous for the big waves. They have the 100-foot wave documentary that ran on HBO, and we're getting a winter storm that's coming in this weekend. It's going to get the waves churning, and hopefully we're going to see some amazing views. So we were just chatting about the fact that Nazaré is, it's gearing up for the first storm of the season. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I see some folks from Colorado and Massachusetts. It's great to have you here. Wow, Dawn, you're up early. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get into the chat. And then our plan is to just open it up with questions. I know a lot of folks have a lot of different things on their mind. I hope we can get to as much as we can during this conversation. One thing, just a little bit of housekeeping. I'll say it again a couple of times. We're going to try to stay a little high level. If you have individual questions that might be very specific about things like income, medical, things like that, certainly happy to get your information and come back around and see if we can assist you offline. But here we'll really try to get to the questions that can apply to everyone and help start you on your way. Welcome again, everyone. I see we've got people from California. I am so impressed with all of you early morning people on the West Coast. So great to see you, and Florida as well. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Colleen. I'm with Portugal the Place, and we put together this Q&A, this relaxed style today, just to give you a chance to ask questions and find out what you need to know if you're considering moving abroad or moving to Portugal. So we're really, really happy to have you here. So not so early. Okay, 10 a.m., but it's Saturday morning, and you could be doing other things. So thank you so much for jumping in, all of you, on your Saturday. Again, it's later afternoon, evening here. For being in Portugal, it's still early. Nobody's eating dinner yet. We still have a couple hours before the dinner time. So this is a great time for us to jump on board and answer questions. We're just going to give folks a couple of more minutes just to get logged in. Again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And of course, please let us know where you're logging in from. It's really great to see where everybody's at. We've got folks in California, Florida, Massachusetts. I've been seeing people coming in. Oh, Indiana. Hi, Kelly. Great to see you. And Colorado. So it looks like we have folks all across the country right now. So fantastic. Rhode Island. Hey, I used to work in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, so know the area really well. Great to see you. All right, Florida. So, it looks like we're getting a lot of folks logging in. I'm just watching the times. So I think we're ready to go. And of course, as people come in, I'm sure we'll continue to get some more questions. And yes, we are going to send out a live recording of this Q&A. That's a great first question, Christopher. We are going to share it out on all our social channels and try to make sure that it's available to everyone. So we will certainly get this out to everybody. Hey, Samantha, hi from South Dakota. Great to have you here. Idaho as well. So I'd like to introduce myself again. My name is Colleen, and I'm the founder and CEO of Portugal, the Place. We are an organization that assists people in relocating to Portugal. We are very proud of the fact that not only do we work with you on all of the elements of getting you relocated to this beautiful country, but really keeping it real and helping to set the expectations that you need to have when you make a big move. So questions today are really important. We really want to dig in and talk about those things that are top of mind for you, no matter what part of the process you're in. So if you've got questions, please queue them up in the chat. And Fiona is here working with us on the other side. She's going to be posting up questions for me to start answering. And then we also have a fantastic guest here with me as well, Mary. She's one of our clients, and she also lives here in Alcobaça and came in to provide some support and may be available if we have some extra time and questions for her as well. So the first question I see here is we've got from Deb, is that you want to move right away, but you're not old enough to retire and you're confused about the different visas. And do you recommend getting a job before coming via remote? That is a great question, Deb, and a great place to start, because we really do want to start early on talking about how you qualify to move abroad. And this applies to many different countries, but for Portugal in particular, there's multiple visas that you can consider, but there are two that are the most popular. So if you are not of retirement age, that doesn't mean that you can't apply for the visa that everyone calls the retirement visa. It's the D7, or the passive visa. And what that means is this is a visa that says you have some kind of income that comes in a passive manner. It could be rental income if you have a house that you wanted to rent out in the United States and use that income. It can be dividends, a pension, Social Security, any kind of income, imagine, that comes to you whether you're working or not. So that is what the D7 visa is about. So you don't have to be a certain age to qualify for it. It's how your income comes to you. So that's really important. The other side of it is the other side of the visa. The other one most people are really asking about is the D8. That is a digital nomad visa. And the D8 is if you have a contract or if you are employed in a way with proof that you can work abroad, that allows you to use your working contract showing that you can work outside of the United States. And that one will let you work with a remote job, for example. But I would encourage everyone to have some form of income or employment support before making your plans to move to Portugal, as Portugal does not have a lot of employment readily available. You'll need to speak Portuguese, and they really expect that you'll have a job and not take a job from a Portuguese person. So I hope that is a quick, I know that was a fire hose of information on the D7 and the D8, but that's the most important place to start. So how we can help with the process of finding and purchasing a home. So one thing, Portugal, the Place, we have created a very different model. This is something that's really important to us because we're not real estate agents. We do not work on commission. Our goal is to navigate you through the entire process and get you the information that you need to make sure that you're educated and that you know what you need to know to go through a different real estate market. So how it works is we do a flat fee. So it is a relocation package that covers everything from the original searching all the way to settling. So this is the idea that we will help you locate your area, help you understand the market, make sure your budget is aligned with your expectations, educate you on all the different things you need to know about purchasing a home in Portugal. And then after you've purchased, we'll help you with all the setup from utilities to the services you need to get the home prepared, all the other things as well, like buying a car, insurance, helping move your pet, anything that you need in that process to relocate. So it's an entire relocation package wrapped around educating you on purchasing a home. Thank you, Dawn, for the question. So yes, Shirley, you definitely need to start with a NIF. The NIF is your tax identification number in Portugal. Really, nothing else can start until you have that, because the NIF is what you need to open a bank account. It's how you do transactions in Portugal, and it's your identification in the finance department or the tax department here. Now, a couple of things to note. It's not like a social security number. You give it to everyone here. It doesn't connect to your personal information, and there's no worry about having anything done with it where someone could abuse it or use it without your permission. It is literally just an identification number to help you navigate the finance department here in Portugal. And the other thing you need to know is you don't become a tax resident until you actually move here and establish your residency. So getting a NIF doesn't necessarily, it doesn't commit you to living in Portugal. You just need it to get the process started. Okay, so Mark, your great grandfather was born in the Azores and you're trying to get a hold of his birth certificate. Pursuing citizenship that way is difficult. Great grandfather might be possible. That's quite a distant familial connection. You definitely would have to have proof of his birth, but this is a long process. It does take quite a while. You would be looking at navigating perhaps a couple of years through getting an attorney, filing proof, and then finally coming out the other side with a Portuguese passport. It might not be possible with great grandfather. We need to check and see the familial line, because I know grandfather and father would work. Great grandfather might be a question mark, and you definitely need to have the documentation to get that process started. Hi, Melissa. The visa process is an up and down process. It has waves of easy and more difficult. They're not making it more difficult. No one is creating a process that is purposely more difficult or trying to deny you from having a visa here in Portugal. They're not intending in any way at this point, and have not had an idea of reducing the amount of people that are getting approved. In fact, Portugal wants to approve you for a visa. Their challenge is the volume. So they continue to try to add people to respond to the volume of inquiries and needs for visas, but it does sometimes get backed up. So the difficult process is patience. And a lot of Americans, we're not so great with patience, but it does work. We do get through the process. And remember, we're just a tiny percentage of the people that are applying here in Portugal. The largest communities that are applying for visas are Brazilians, Angolans, folks from other countries abroad, England. So we're in the queue along with many, many other folks from around the world. Okay, so Anthony is looking for information on the D7 visa requirements for a family of 5, monthly monetary requirements, and is there a minimum requirement for a total bank account amount? Okay, so here we go. For the D7, it is going to change slightly for cost of living in 2025, but I don't believe it's going to be anything too dramatic. So we're going to use some rounded up numbers just to protect you from the fact that it's going to go up slightly from 2024 to 2025. So right now, for a solo person, for a single person on the D7, you have to have 883 euros per month of passive income to qualify for the D7. That's the minimum, and that is in euros. And then you have to have equal to that for 12 months in the bank account. So you need 1 year's worth of that in the bank account, plus you need to show a monthly income of 883 euros. Now, when you continue to have family and dependents, this is where you continue to add on numbers. Your spouse, if you have a partner, spouse, family, you're either a domestic partner or if you are married, you would then, that person would be 50% of the required amount for the first person for both the monthly income and the amount in the bank account. And then as you have dependents that are under the age of 18, there is a lesser amount that is required. So I would need to go in and do a calculation. There's a variety of different calculators we can use to get you there for the family of 5, and depending on your relationship. But you can count that you don't want to hit the minimum to get accepted. You really are going to need more than what the bare minimum is that they require. So when we're talking with people with a family of 5, and what we're suggesting folks shoot for is around 4,000 a month in passive income to cover your expenses and to cover a family of 5, and then equivalent to that for 1 year in the bank account. So that's roughly rounded up to anticipate some cost of living increases for 2025. College age children. So that's a really interesting question. That is definitely something we get asked quite a bit. So it depends on the age of the child. So if your child is between the ages of 18 and 21, then you still have the opportunity, if they're enrolled in school, to bring them through with you as a dependent, and they don't have to have a standalone visa. But if they're over that age and they're still enrolled in school, then yes, a student visa would be required, and that's renewed annually, and they have to prove that they are attending school. They have to show 75% time of attendance. There is proof required, and that's an annual renewal of that visa. Hey, Deb. So would you recommend coming first to get settled and then flying back to the USA to file, or can I do that before moving? Actually, this is a fantastic question. We get this quite a lot. You have to do everything before you relocate to Portugal. You cannot apply from Portugal, and you need to do things in a certain order. So for whichever visa we're talking about, you need to start, you get your NIF online, you get your bank account, you have to go through and make sure you hit the qualifications. There's accommodation requirements, and this feels very cart and horse, okay? It feels backwards. You have to either have a 12-month legal and licensed lease that is ready to go when you go for your visa appointment, or you have to show that you're in the process of or have purchased a property. Then you go to your visa appointment and you get a temporary residency permit. This is what allows you to relocate to Portugal. You do not get the visa at that very first appointment in the United States at the consulate. And this is confusing when you're looking online, because a lot of people are like, I got my visa, I got my visa. You actually get a temporary residency permit. That then triggers your ability to contact the, start your actual moving process, move to Portugal. Then you will have a second appointment with IMA in Portugal. That's your immigration authority. And then is when you will become a resident, and that is when you'll get your residency number in your card. So you really do need to do it step by step. If you want to come here and location scout, if you want to come and use your 90-day tourist visa to live for a short period of time, you certainly can do that, but you must start the process from your residency in your home country. Yes. Hi, Shirley. That is the question. So that's one of the services we provide. But in general, to get the apartment, you will need to make sure that you have a legal and licensed lease. And what that means is it has to be a 12-month lease. This lease has to be registered with the finance department. It has to show that the landlord is willing to pay the tax on the monthly income. That's what makes it registered. So to do this process, you will need to contact a company, hopefully us, if you're planning to move here, but contact a company or realtors directly to secure that lease. Now, here's what happens. There's a lot of websites online like Idealista, Supercasa, a variety of search engines. About 50% of the properties you will see are not qualified for the visa. They either want to have the money under the table and they don't want to register the lease, or they're a short-term rental like an Airbnb, and those are not allowed for the visa process. So you really do need to get that started before and make sure you have your budget and your plans all in place before you have your visa appointment. Yes. Hi, Kelly. Yes, we do. That's what we started on. Portugal, the place. When we came here, we were, we're from the United States, my husband and I. We moved here with my 81-year-old father with our big dog. We have a 125-pound Newfie Doodle. And Clyde and I, we moved to Portugal during COVID. And we realized really quickly that there was a big gap between real estate agencies and immigration attorneys and all that support that you need when you want to relocate, even to another state in the US, can be challenging. So we saw that there was a need for folks that understand and have been through the process. And so that's what we founded it all on, was helping you sort through the locations, figure out what works for you, and make it so it's not looking at the beautiful castles and wineries. That's absolutely here. We want to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, get your expectations in place, and make sure that your lifestyle matches where you choose to the best of your ability, and get you started with a really good start for the area in Portugal that's best for you. No, actually, Kim, we do pretty well with pets. Portuguese people love dogs, love cats. Oh my goodness, there's tons of them around here. We've helped people move 10 parrots. That was challenging. I wouldn't recommend everyone doing that. But moving pets is not a major problem. It's just another layer. So when we have rentals, we do lose some inventory because some people don't want to accept them, just like in the US. But here we are able to navigate it. And most of the time, what we do is we set up like a cute little resume of you and your furry friend and pictures and who they are, and really introduce them to the potential landlords to help them see that this is a family pet and that it will be, easy to navigate having them in the home. Can you hold title on a Portuguese home in a US trust? Kelly, yes, you can. That is actually something a lot of people do when they set up their financial format for relocating. I am not a financial advisor, so I really can't go into details because of the way different things are structured, but we do have many clients that have decided to navigate the financial process that way and to create a US trust. Thank you for the questions, by the way, you guys. This is fun. So do you have to pay the entire year in a rental upfront? No, Deb, you do not. In fact, if you see anything like that online, if you encounter that, if you're searching on your own, I really encourage you to avoid that, because once you give all your money to the landlord, you are now in a power flip and you really don't have anything that you can do if something goes wrong. The standard contract here for a lease anywhere except Lisbon. So we're going to set Lisbon aside, but in the rest of the country is first, last, and security deposit. And if you have an animal, sometimes they'll ask for an additional pet deposit. In Lisbon, you may see, because you're competing in a very, very high competitive market, you may see 6 months up front, but I wouldn't encourage anyone to engage in anything longer than that, as then at that point they have your money and you really don't have much recourse if something were to go awry. Hey, Kathleen. Yes, so we can help with all the health insurance. We have health insurance brokers that we can refer you to. We work with Serenity. If you don't know who Serenity is, look them up online. They are a healthcare concierge that really can help you if you have any concerns about healthcare issues or looking for a particular type of doctor. But yes, we can help you navigate the healthcare process and get you connected with the folks that can get you all the quotes that are required for Portugal. Hi, Shirley. So yes, you will. This is what you have to count in. So you're going to need to pay for a portion of your rental before you move here. We all have done it and it's part of the process and it feels weird. That's that cart and horse thing. But yes, you can expect to include in your moving expenses when you're creating a budget to put in, around 3 to 4 months worth of rent when you're not living there. Now, on the flip side, when you're working with us, for example, at Portugal the Place, we use that time when we have access. We hold your keys, we go in, we get your utilities hooked up, we help receive deliveries. If you need to purchase things like a new bed, or maybe you want to ship your pet's dog food or whatever it is, we get your place all ready for you. And then we give you your keys when you arrive. So it is a nice thing to have access so that we can get it prepared for your arrival. Hello. So how do you apply for the D7 when you don't have an address in Portugal yet? So that's what you need to do is first you go to, depending on where you live, the consulates have different services that will help you apply. So San Francisco and Washington, D.C., for example, use an organization called VFS Global. And then New Jersey, for example, use e-visa. But you find the consulate that's closest to your address, and then you start the process, and you need to have that lease with the address before you have your appointment. So that's what we're talking about. Once you have your lease or you purchase a home and you have the contract that shows you're purchasing the home, that's your address in Portugal, and that's what you'll use when you apply for the visa. Hey, Karen. So what is the amount of time we need to rent to qualify for a D7 visa? Can we rent for 3 to 6 months and then purchase a home? Unfortunately, no. They require a 12-month legal and licensed lease. So depending on what your plans are, there are ways that we can assist. For example, about 40% of our clients purchase homes from investment potential or for their forever home completely virtual. Other folks come over and scout in person and we find them their home, because all you need is the promissory contract, which is the commitment contract showing you intend to buy the home. It doesn't have to be the final deed to apply for the visa. But you can't, it's not going to work if you don't have a contract for a home purchase. You're going to need that long lease. So you will have to make that commitment. Some folks decide to rent for that 12 months and then start the process of looking to purchasing. You can break your lease. There is a portion of your lease that you need to give 4 months notice when you go to break your lease. But remember, you're probably going to use at least 4 months of your lease before you ever even live here. So it's not really too difficult to transition from a lease into a purchase without much interruption in your plans or your finances. Hi, Kelly. How does school work for kids of digital nomads? Do they have international schools, or would homeschooling be a better fit? So they have every type of school here. It really depends on what part of the country you choose to live in. So there are international schools spread across the country, with the concentration of them around Lisbon, around Porto, the Algarve, and there are some on the Silver Coast. So definitely running up and down the country, you can find international schools that are taught in English. There's also a plethora of private schools that are taught with an English curriculum or have access to English support, where when Portuguese is a second language, that you can have immersion experiences for children depending on their age. And the public school systems will have programs for Portuguese as a second language as well. So depending on the age and the learning style of your child, there will be options, but it will really be determined by your location and the age of your child. But yes, mostly people don't really homeschool here very often. There's a lot of different options for kids. Hi, Wendy. For a D7 visa, do you pay for the years of health insurance up front? Some say monthly is okay as long. Yes, monthly is fine. You don't have to pay for years in advance. We all have our monthly contracts. You will pay for a block of what's it called, like a gap insurance. This is the insurance that they require that you have between the time that you get your temporary residency permit and your actual visa, because in this period of time, you won't be on the national health system. And so it's not an expensive policy to have. It's required by the visa, and that's a lump sum for about 6 months. And that's something we can help you navigate or you can find online. And that's one of the requirements for the visa. But if you decide just to buy private insurance to cover yourself, you can just show your contract and your monthly payment. Hi, Hope. A reptile. So the turtles so far have not caused us any issues. So as long as the turtle is healthy and has a vet check, we have moved turtles and we've moved iguanas. We've had issues with snakes because they don't want snakes in Portugal, but turtles should be fine. And with a backyard for your dog. So again, that's location. If you want to live in the city, if you want to live in Lisboa or Porto, if you want to be in a densely populated area where you are able to just, not have to have a car and just like walk out to everything, backyards aren't really a practical consideration. You would probably at the most have like a small terrace, but there are parks aplenty. And the one thing here in Portugal that's really interesting is they don't make all the dogs go to a dog park where they're all chained into like this little area. Like you can walk your dog and you can go out. You're supposed to clean up after them, but dogs are welcome in the green space. But as soon as you move out of the larger cities, then it's completely reasonable to find a home with a yard. Do I have suggestions for immigration solicitors and lawyers? Yes, we do have partners. There are different levels. There are advisors that assist with the immigration process, and then there are lawyers that can help navigate a legal issue. One of the things we do here at Portugal the Place, and we really do help you when you have a call, we really want to identify if we think you need to have an attorney represent you or if you can do it yourself. Because if you fit the qualifications and you don't have any tricky situations like proof of income, or perhaps you had a little hiccup on your FBI report or something that would need a lawyer to help you navigate, the visa application process is pretty straightforward. So it's really important that we work together, and that when you're looking at this, you don't get overwhelmed and feel like you must have a lawyer. If you have a very straightforward situation, there's files, there's groups like American and Friends on Facebook that have detailed files on how to apply. So yes, we have referrals, but we also encourage you to look and see if you're comfortable doing it on your own as well. Hello. Yes, we are recording this and we will share it out afterwards. So no worries. Hi, Maureen. So the best international communities. Wow, that's kind of a loaded question because Portugal is an amazingly international country with people from all over the world. So Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve have a high concentration of international folks living there. And when I say international, you're talking from South Africa to Australia, the United States, all across Europe, all across Asia. It's really an amazing thing here in Portugal, the amount of people that you get to meet and learn about. But if you move, for example, to the Silver Coast where we are, we have a thriving community of people from all over North America, England, all across the world as well. It's when you start moving to the eastern side of Portugal, when you start pushing over towards the Spanish border, more through the Alentejo and these areas that are more isolated, Braganza up in the north, for example, that's where you're going to start seeing less and less of the international community as they're farther away from the airports. And it does have a more agricultural feel, so it doesn't always appeal to international folks when they first move here. Hey, Kelly. So, no, lucky you. You have an Irish passport, Irish citizen, an EU passport. You get to just decide when you want to move here. You get to skip everything else that I said. It's like a Monopoly game. You kind of just get to go to the head of the line. And when you get here, you get your place. You just, you will, of course, want to have somewhere to live. And then you go register with the finance office that you have arrived, and they will just register it and you get to start living here. That's the benefit of the EU passport. And for many of us that have moved to Portugal, once you've had your visa for 5 years, you can apply as well for a Portuguese passport and then start having those same benefits to live anywhere in the EU. But remember, you have to speak Portuguese to get that passport. Hello. So shipping a vehicle. This is a really interesting question that I get quite often from clients because they're very attached to or just bought a vehicle. So it can be rather cumbersome to ship a vehicle from the US because they will require, even if it's a European vehicle, even if it's German or whatever, it was built to live in the United States. So it will have to come back over and go through an inspection, and it will have to be either approved, you have to pay for inspections. There's a variety of things you have to do to be able to drive it here. So it depends on the car, the value, if it's something that's really worth to you going through that whole headache. We certainly see people that choose to ship them over, but you can also buy a variety of vehicles here in Portugal, electric vehicles, hybrids. You can buy pre-owned. There's every kind of dealership that you need. You just would want to weigh the costs and the value of your car and see if the fees and everything outweigh buying the car that you would like here. So either way, there's pros and cons. Hey, Greg. So there's lots of moving companies. There's a variety of ways, and it depends on how you want to move. This is a great question. So for some folks, they are the nomads. They're like, we're getting rid of everything. They put, those are the ones, if you haven't seen them yet, there's pictures of them at the airport with their 13 suitcases, and that's all they have in the world, and they start all over again. For others, they want to bring some of their mementos and the things that bring them joy. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. You just really need to do it in the way that works best for you. So a budget or economical way to do it is a company called You Pack, We Ship. And that is where exactly what it says. You're responsible for getting it all packed. They pick it up and they ship it to Portugal. We have companies that we have partnered with that will do door-to-door service where they pack everything, guarantee the insurance, move it across the world, and then bring it to your door in Portugal. It's just really your budget, how much that you're bringing. Is it a container? Is it a pallet? That type of thing that you'll want to consider. One thing to note is you can't ship your things until you have your what is called a bill of lading. It's proof that you have gotten your residency in Portugal, that first card. You have to come and register your address and then have that paperwork so that you don't have to pay duty through customs. So it's really important to understand you'll have a little delay between when you get here and when your things can be moved here. How much money do you recommend to set aside to prepare for your move? Well, that's a really good question because you really want to understand Portugal has many affordable elements about it. And it is true that just in places like healthcare and prescriptions, for example, it's just such a difference than what folks are used to paying in the States. But it isn't a cheap country. There's a reason people are moving here and loving their life here is it's a wonderful balance of affordability of a lifestyle, going out, dining out, your daily needs, the things that you want. But there are other things that are equally expensive to what's in the United States. For example, fuel, here by the liter, it is definitely equal to what or more, depending on where you live in the US, than it costs. Electricity can be the same. If you're in California, the electricity costs in Portugal feel less expensive. But if you're in Indiana, for example, it might feel more expensive. So when you're looking at your overall budget, you really want to dig into looking at what you are spending right now and then working backwards from how you would like your lifestyle to be and looking at giving yourself a cushion. So for example, for a solo person, we really encourage if they're coming over on the D7 that they at least have 2,500 a month for their passive income. And then if they can have about 50,000 euros in the bank to give them a cushion in case they need to do something, they can prepare for, some unexpected thing that happens. They have some things, there in case they want to travel. You just need to have a little extra cushion. And then anything beyond that will just continue to build upon your ability to relax and enjoy your lifestyle here. But I really, really wouldn't want someone to be encouraged to move here on the bare minimum. It's not realistic. It's not realistic. If you barely slide in at the 883 per month and you can just barely get that 1 year's worth in the bank for a solo person, it's really not a realistic number for you to live here and feel confident that you are going to be able to support yourself every month. Hey, Shirley. So when you get your bank account, do you need to have a year's worth of income in the bank before you apply for the D7? Yes, they will want, not when you get the bank account you can just fund with 250 euros. It's a simple funding. But before your visa, you're going to need to transfer those funds in there so that they can see that you have a year's worth of your money needed for that visa that you're applying for. Hi, Wendy. So you're in Florida, so you get to go to Miami. So the wait time in Miami has not been as bad as Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. So what we're hearing in Miami is they're pulling those appointments in. They're rolling them over in about 30 to 45 days out. So if you were looking right now, I actually forgot what day it is. It's like November 23rd. You could be pretty confident with the holiday that you could probably start picking up appointments around mid-January. So Miami hasn't been as difficult. Houston is doing really well. They just opened an office in Houston. Miami, again, not so bad, but be prepared and keep watching for Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. Those two are really, really backed up. Hi, Kim. Okay, this is a great question. I'm so glad you brought this up. Portugal has different rules about family law. So wills and advance directives, things like this, you definitely need to redo when you come to Portugal to protect your assets and to have them follow your wishes. I know this from personal experience. My father passed away last year. He moved with us when he was 81. He was 85. He had an amazing life while he was here. We didn't realize that they didn't accept the advance directive, the living will. We had the paperwork, but we should have gone in and had it duplicated into Portuguese version. So unfortunately, it was a little difficult for us to navigate. So when you get here, there's lots of family law attorneys. It's not expensive. They can just take what you have in the States and put it into the version that works best for you and your family here in Portugal. Hey, Carol. Do you need to get an FBI report if you've been living outside of the US and the UK for 2+ years and a US citizen? Yes, you will. You will need to have a background, and they may even request, depending on the reason and the type of visa that you had or the reason you were in the UK, for an Interpol report. It just depends on your status and why you were out of the country, but you will need a background check, yes. Hi, Kim. Okay, reunification visa and how it works. This is correct. The reunification part of the process has been slower than the where everyone has their own visa. So when you apply for a visa, what most families, what we're seeing being recommended is each person in the family that is an adult, so both spouses apply for a visa. Of course, the children come in a different way as dependents. Now, for those that want to, for some reason, come in and do where the one person comes in with the visa and then the other person wants to come later and family reunify, these are the appointments that have been deprioritized. And so they are taking longer. So that is absolutely a consideration when you're figuring out your moving plan. Nope, we don't scout for Spain. We can't hardly keep up with Portugal, but we love Spain. We go there quite often. In fact, we have folks right now that went to Costco in Seville. It's about 5 hours away. So we're not doing Spain right now, but thanks for asking. Hey, Chris. So if you already have a family home in Portugal and one family member needs a visa while waiting for their citizenship application to be approved, all the other family members are already citizens, does having the family home remove the need for having a rental address set up? That's a great question, Chris. And yes, it would, because the person that is the family home would do a tour. This is a different document that would show that they're taking responsibility for you, and you would be able to apply for the visa using that. So that document would absolutely be sufficient for the application. If you had this very particular situation where you already had a family home, and of course you need to be legally married or a domestic partnership for that to apply. Hello, Shirley. VSF Global in Washington, D.C., and is the visa application faster through them? No. It really isn't. San Francisco and Washington, D.C. are the busiest two consulates. So if that's where your address lands, then that's where you have to go through, and you cannot change that. They move you through geography. So you are with the place you are at. Here's the trick for everyone trying to get an appointment for your visa, and it is working, and I have lots of clients that we've helped through the process. They dump canceled appointments and new appointments after midnight in the system. So if you set your alarm in the city, wherever, whatever part of the country the consulate is that you're applying for, to start looking online for an appointment between 5 and 7 in the morning, you will have the first chance to grab those appointments. If you're looking anytime after 10 or 11, those things are just gone, because imagine for San Francisco, for example, everything west of the Rockies is going through San Francisco. So everybody is trying to get in and get an appointment there in San Francisco. So the early bird really does get the worm. You need to get in there and try to get as early as possible if you want to snag those appointments that you need. How can you get your 4 dogs over logistically? Well, it can really depend on the size of the dog and the type of dog. So in general, you can move your dog in a variety of ways. If they're small enough to go in the cabin with you and they fit through the airport requirements for that, you would need one person for each dog. So you might want to see if a couple people want to go with you, and then you could bring all 4 together at the same time. If they're in cargo, that gets a little trickier if they're larger, because most planes only have an amount of space on that particular plane for a certain amount of dogs. So when you're looking to logistically move that many animals to try to do it all at once, there are pet relocation companies that work with the military, that work with diplomats, international folks. We have connections and can refer you. They would coordinate and make a plan for you to do like a door-to-door to help you get your dog safely moved to Portugal. Because when you start moving into that like 4 number with dogs, and depending on the size, it's definitely, you probably want an expert to help you coordinate that. Yes, Mark. Yes, a microchip is required for your pet. And there are other requirements, such as you have to have the rabies shots for them. Their vaccinations have to be all up to date. You have to have a veterinarian certificate that's valid 10 days before the pet travels. And there are breed restrictions. There's a list of breed restrictions, but a couple that you really need to be aware of is flat-faced dogs like Pekingese and pugs. are restricted from flying many times. The airlines, the commercial airlines will restrict them because they're concerned about breathing. There are options with private jets, but those become a more costly option. If you're talking about breed restrictions from Portugal, there are breed restrictions with like Staffordshire Terriers and some of the other dogs that can be seen as being maybe an aggressive dog. There's a variety of animals that could fit into that category. So there are lists online that you can get to see which breeds are not allowed. But for the flat-faced dogs, you really have to think about the airlines. What consulate do you use if you live in Louisiana? I believe it's Washington, D.C., but I'm not sure if Houston's picking up anything out of Louisiana right now because Houston just opened. So it should be Washington, D.C., but Houston just opened and you're close enough. They might have pulled Louisiana in. I actually don't know the answer to that, Deanna, but that's certainly something if you Google, I would guess that it's going to be Washington, D.C., unless they happen to scoop up Louisiana with Houston. Leaf, if my company sponsors the D8 visa and I lose my job for some reason, can I stay in Portugal and apply for the D7 if I qualify? So once you have had your visa issued to you, you will have 2 years before it needs to be renewed. So during those 2 years, if something happens and unfortunately you don't have that job anymore, no one's going to ask you to leave the country. You're not going to be penalized. What will happen is when you need to renew that visa for the next 3 years, they're going to ask you to submit all the documentation over again. So at that point, you would either need to submit the documentation for that D8 qualifying visa with the income requirements, or you would at that point be switching and applying for the passive income at that renewal point. And that's where we would suggest getting an immigration attorney to walk you through the switch because it gets a little bit more complicated if something like that happens. If BGC expires, BGC, I'm missing the acronym. I'm sorry, Shirley, I'm not sure what the BGC is. Oh, are you talking background check? Background check, I bet. The FBI background check? Yes, you're sorry. I had a moment here. I apologize. I was like, what? Yes. So if your visa application packet has already gone in and they've already accepted it, then you're fine. But it has a 90-day lifespan on it. So if for some reason you order it, get it apostilled, and then that visa appointment is delayed or something happens, then yes, you would need to do it again because it has to be a valid, active FBI background check. Sorry about that, Shirley. I missed that acronym. Is there a higher financial threshold for a married couple needing D7 visas? So that is what I was similar to what we were talking about with where if you were married, the first person has the full amount. So that 883 is what it is for 2024. To make the math simple, I'm going to round up for 2025 and say, imagine it was 1,000. It's probably going to be 9 something, but it would be 1,000 a month for the first person and 500 euros for the second person. So you'd need a total of 1,500 a month for a married couple, plus equivalent to 1 year of that in the bank. Must everyone have an FBI issued citizen in good standing letter before a visa is issued? Do you help to obtain this letter? So it's a very simple process to go through the FBI background check. We can assist you with all the links and everything. You do have to do it yourself as it's a private account that you'll do, but we have all of the information and can walk you through that. So that shouldn't be difficult for you to get at all. It's very straightforward. So you're looking at the D5. Can I have a remote job that's US based to provide an income for yourself? So that is a good question. And that is also one, this is a subjective visa. This one gets a little bit more complicated. And this is where I would suggest consulting with an immigration consultant and digging into that offline, because the type of job, the type of contract, the proof of income, what you have in your tax returns, all these things affect the different visas. And with the D5, that would definitely be a consideration. Okay, Shirley, this is another question that comes up quite a bit, and this is subjective. And I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but the truth is, The people approving the visa applications, when you go to the consulates, they are individual people, and some don't care if you have an airplane ticket, and some are absolute. When is your plane ticket? When do you have it? All of that. So we really do suggest that you have an open ticket that you can have there to show that you have a date. Two reasons. One, just in case you get someone that really sticks to the rules, you want to make sure you don't screw up your appointment. And two, you buy a ticket in a reasonable amount of time for when they are supposed to approve your visa, and then they will have in the documentation that says you're supposed to fly, 65 days later after your appointment. So that is a good thing to have in there to show your intent and that you're planning to go. Have people been approved without the plane ticket? Yes, but I wouldn't recommend going in without it for both those reasons. So Christopher, you're talking about enrolling your English-speaking children in school. So that's a great question, and I'm really glad you asked that. So for first, there are those levels of school. There's the international schools, but these have a tuition, and you need to be prepared with the budget for what those schools would cost. And those are English speaking, but what the children don't get is an immersion into Portuguese. So it really depends on what you're hoping your child will have as an experience living in Portugal. It is not difficult to enroll an English-speaking student in public school. We help people all the time with that. There are different areas that have stronger schools with Portuguese as a second language programs, tutors, administrators. Really, they're in the areas where we're getting higher concentrations of English-speaking people. The schools are responding and creating programs. Private schools that are in the middle, a lot of private schools are creating English-based programs within their private school structure. But again, that's tuition-based, so you'd want to consider it. But if you just strictly wanted to enroll your child in the public school, it would be a research piece that we would want to do, because we'd want to make sure you're coming into an area where they have experience, that they've got other English-speaking students, they've already established those support pieces that you need to help your child adjust. Hey, Kelly. So how does school work for kids of digital nomad? I think we had this question already. So I think we've already answered that question there. So the international schools definitely are available across the country. So let's see, Chris, if we have an accountant in Canada, should we try to get an immigration or Portuguese accountant? Will we be continuing to work abroad as well as work locally? So for Canada, you will definitely want to have, so for all of my Americans on this call, please don't pay attention to what I'm going to say for the Canadians, because it's entirely different. Americans are taxed on citizenship, and you must have you must be prepared to pay taxes in the United States and in Portugal, and we will have both. You have both. You need to have a person in the States that can understand helping you file, and you'll have your Portuguese tax accountant. For Canadians, you can have, if you are working in both, you can have your Portuguese accountant start the process, help you evaluate where you're at, and then you can consider the taxes you pay in Portugal first on your earned income from both countries, because you're not going to be taxed on the income in Portugal from Canada. So if you reduce in Canada to a very simple amount of income, you may be able to file without needing both. But that's a loaded question, Chris, and thanks a lot, because that's making me really think on all the different moving parts. But for what you need, you really want to start with the Portuguese side, get a really good accountant that walked you through all of the different elements of that income. And then at that point, you'd know how much you were paying in Portuguese taxes, and you could determine what you needed to do in Canada at that point. All right. Keep them coming. We'll do questions. So you have 3 young adult children. Would this be a family endeavor, or do we all have to work separately through the process? So you will be working through the process of helping your children relocate, and they will be dependents, but each single person in the family has to have a NIF. Both adults, all the adults in the family have to have a bank account. Dependents that are children don't have to be on the bank account, but every single person has to have a NIF, and each one of them have to have an independent, they're going to get their own visa or be reunified with their parents. So here's something that happens quite often, and it can get a little confusing. you will get your permits for everyone to move to Portugal, and then you'll get your appointments. And it is quite possible that a family of 4 could have appointments in 4 different cities, even if your children are minors. So that's something we can help you work through and navigate. But each person is getting a visa and being set up in the system in Portugal as an individual. So would being a couple that isn't married or seen as a domestic partner be seen as risky by landlords? Absolutely not. We see it all the time. No issue at all. We've got sisters, we have friends, all kinds of different people setting up their leases. So that wouldn't be an issue. Will you do the NIF for us? We have a partner that we work with that is legally able to do the NIF. It is an actual responsibility for you. When they do the NIF, they take responsibility financially for you. And we have a partner and we help you go through the whole process. So yes, we can help you with that, Shirley, for sure. And I love the language question. So there are a lot of different Portuguese apps. Everybody has their favorites. There are so many. Here's the thing on this, Deb. As much as you try, and I encourage you to use different ones, Pimsleur is one that a lot of folks have talked about. Until you live in Portugal, until you're here and able to really try to put it in practice, don't beat yourself up too much if it's difficult to navigate, because Portuguese isn't the easiest language to learn. It isn't easy to learn remotely, because if you don't hear it constantly being pronounced and said to you, it's going to feel frustrating. So we really encourage people to learn some basic phrases, to get comfortable with the words on the paper, do what works for you, but don't beat yourself up about it, because when you get here, it'll start to be a process that you can learn and lean into. But that's a good app to start with for sure, Deb. How does credit work to rent or buy a home here? So renting, it is what they're going to be asking for is tax returns and proof of income. That's going to be the number one thing they're looking for. They're not asking for a credit report in that case, but they're looking for proof of income and proof of tax returns to show that you have the stability and the ability to pay. So when it's renting and leasing, that is something that is pretty straightforward to navigate. Sometimes if there's any kind of like difference between how much you can show in tax returns in the past years, that's when you may hear that they want to ask another month's deposit or something like that, just for security's case. For buying a home here, if you're paying cash, of course, cash is cash. You can get a mortgage in Portugal as a US citizen that doesn't live here. You could get a mortgage just for a vacation home here if you wish. The way a mortgage works in Portugal is there's a couple of key differences. One, they're age rated. So you can get a mortgage from whatever age you are to the age of 76 years old. So that's really important to note. It's not 30-year fixed. It's not like that. They are age rated. The other thing to know here on the mortgages is most of them are variable rate mortgages, and the mortgage rates fluctuate, but they are around 3%. So for Americans, we usually have a really good rate of return on a mortgage investment, and our payments are very flexible because our income traditionally is so much higher than what the Portuguese are using to qualify for. So the Portuguese banks like the risk. They like investing in Americans. They will ask for credit reports from the United States. They will request them. That is not the only thing they're considering, and they don't use it in the same way that they use it in the United States, but they will request documentation, income verification, credit report, pay stubs, all that type of paperwork, but they don't give it the same weight that it is given in the US. Hey, Rebecca. Hi, Teresa. Are there any issues for married LGBTQ couples being recognized as married in Portugal? Absolutely not. There is no problem. It is registered. They are recognized. I'm very proud to live in a country where Portugal was one of the first to recognize gay marriage. So this is a place where you can feel confident that you can move with and be recognized as legally married. And the discrimination is not a consideration that I think you need to be concerned about. We have so many clients that move here that are living safely and happily and enjoying their life here. And it's not that how do I want to say this? It's not that people don't care. You just live your life here. You don't stand out. They're not like, oh, look over there. That's where all the gay people live. It literally is live and let live. People live together, people live as a community, and I'm very, very proud of what Portugal does here and how wonderfully welcomed everyone has been in this country. So what type of government do they have? Is it democratic? Are they open to LGBTQ or people of color? Well, that's kind of like question, question, question. So the type of government they have is a democratic socialist government. So yes, it is that socialist word. So we're going to put it out there, but it isn't a communist government. So I just want to make sure there's a vast difference between those two words. This is a government that is run by majority. It is a selected, they have a prime minister, they go through elections, and you have a government that provides a safety net. The taxes that are higher in Portugal, because it is a reality, the taxes are higher in Portugal, provide you with safety nets such as access to healthcare for everyone. The national healthcare system is available. It has advanced technology. It's available to everyone. Also, like the prescriptions, you don't have to worry, like you're going to pay the same amount as your neighbor. It's not based on what insurance you have. There is access to really, really cost-effective, affordable prescriptions. Your cost of living, there's a variety of other things, the ecology, what they're doing with climate. Portugal is one of the leaders in Europe in green technology, and they are very, very proud of that, and they are continuing to strive to improve upon that. So the government has its problems for sure, just like everyone does. Bureaucracy is a thing, and we aren't going to minimize that. But they definitely are a government that is providing these types of support services for their citizens. So they are definitely open to the LGBTQ community. It is a safe country. It is listed in the top 10 safest countries in the world every year. It moves around from like 5, 6, 6, 7. You know, it is a very safe country. And for people of color, for our clients that come here from all walks of life and all backgrounds, they are feeling heard, they are being seen, and they are feeling safe. And I think those are the most important things to express, that we work together to help people be comfortable here. But the most wonderful and beautiful part of being in Portugal, and what I really see on a daily basis, is just how everyone lives their lives together. And I couldn't be happier living here and having such a wonderful group of friends from every place in the world, from all types of backgrounds. And we just get to be together and working and solving problems and living life. So Portugal definitely offers that safety and peace that a lot of people are looking for. Okay. Hi, these are coming in. Hello. So, hi, Christopher. You have a child with special needs, and would they be able to get services? Well, absolutely. This is something that Portugal has lagged behind a little bit in, and they are starting to really improve. It depends on what the child's needs are, but there are speech therapists, occupational therapists, there's support services for folks with a variety of developmental difficulties, autism, different things that people need in school to have that support. They have. Now, the language barrier is a part of that process. So if you're considering relocating, that's something we'd want to dig into and really find the area that had the support that you need for your child to thrive before you land on a location. And it doesn't have to be Lisbon. There's a lot of support all over the country. You just have to make sure that what your child needs is readily available in the area that you're targeting. Hey, Don. How much lead time does PTP need to set up assistance with a home scouting trip? Well, the last couple of weeks have told us that we can do it really fast. It's amazing how many folks are coming over really quickly. We love to have about 2 months lead time. That's great. But for folks that are contacting us and saying, you know, hey, we are already coming over in December and January, we are making it work. Now, to be fair, our calendars are getting really full, but we do our darndest to try to support and get in there and make it work. But if you can give us a couple months, then it feels really great for everyone, because then we can just really dig in and help you plan. We go through all the details in advance. We really get you educated before you come over. So that's really the sweet spot, is about 2 months before you come over. So Leah says she hasn't worked in a few years, but is starting a consulting remote business. Will that hurt me when applying for a digital nomad visa? Not necessarily. It shouldn't. It just depends on what your income verification looks like, what your tax returns look like. That's going to be key. Or if you have contracts with clients that you can prove that you're going to have income. For anyone that's applying for a visa, this is so important. Please write this down. You have to have at least 3 months of the income that you're planning to apply with in your bank account. So if you are just turning 62 and you're getting ready to apply for Social Security, but maybe you want to do the visa like the month before you turn 62, you can't do that. You need to have 3 months of your income in your bank account for it to show up and to be counted. So no matter if it's D8, D7, whatever, you want to make sure that you have that set up before you go in and make a visa appointment. So the home service that I was just talking about and how we help people purchase or rent a home is we go through the whole process of helping you. We vet, search, filter, find. We go through 3 tests. Of course, we go and look at it. We open the cupboards. We pull the drawers out. We check the windows with you. We look at everything. We also jump in there with the smell test. It's really important to make sure that it doesn't smell of mold or mildew. If there's anything that could be like a leftover pet smell or something that needs to be addressed. And we're looking for noise. We can't guarantee that there won't be a dog barking in a building, for example, but what we are looking for is road noise, airplane traffic overhead, construction noise around, really helping you identify if the area is a great place to land from the amenities. What does a neighborhood look like? What are you going to be able to do when you live there? Do you need a car? We want to be realistic. Whether you're purchasing or renting, it's not just about the house you live in, but it's about the community that you will end up in. And then all of that service helps you with negotiating the process. So if you're purchasing, helping you know if it's a good price, if it's fair. There's no MLS system here. There's no comp system. So it's really important that we dig in and that you have our expertise. I've helped over 215 people process and buy a home in the last 2 years. I'm a walking comp. So if you want to work with someone that is not a commissioned real estate agent that can walk you through the process and can give you real, completely non-biased advice and help make sure that you can navigate it safely to the best of our ability, that's what we do. On the rental side, we do the same thing. We're looking to make sure that you're getting into the best rental we can find for your budget. And then we do all the setup post your agreement to get you here. Everything again, from the utilities to the deliveries to services. Maybe you need it cleaned or you need something done with the property, light projects, getting appliances put in, gardeners, all of that we help, and we're there to support you through the whole process. How is the job market? So Akira, the job market, again, you don't come to Portugal looking for a job in Portugal with a Portuguese company. Now, you can get a remote job and work here, and there's European companies that are hiring across Europe that have no problem with you working in Portugal, for example. So that is a possibility, but you cannot depend on coming over to Portugal and finding a living wage job that is going to support you here. Plus, they don't want you doing that. On the visa, they're very clear that they don't want you taking a job from a Portuguese person. On the real estate license side, there is a totally different process here. It isn't the same licensing. Brokers have a different process, but if you don't speak Portuguese, you're not going to be able to get a broker's license. If you want to sell real estate, you can get in the market and attempt to start selling real estate. There's no license required, but it can be a pretty uphill battle. There is literally a dime a dozen real estate agents in Portugal. A lot of people just say, hey, I'm a teacher during the day and I'm going to be a real estate agent in the afternoon. There are thousands of people that maybe say they're an agent and have sold like one house a year, that kind of thing. So it's a different market completely than what you do in the United States, for sure. Let's see. So is it true you can't travel out of Portugal for a year? Absolutely not. That is not true. So that's an interesting thing because people get really confused with the visa process, and there are elements from some folks that get caught if their card hasn't been renewed or if they're in the middle and their card is expired. But There are two things you're going to get. Again, when you go to the visa appointment in the United States with VFS Global or e-visa, they're going to be issuing you a temporary residency permit. That will allow you 2 entries in and out of Portugal. You will use one when you move. So you would have one more left where you could go out back to the United States or to wherever and come back in. Then, once you have your residency permit, you need to be in country 6 months of the year. It doesn't have to be consecutively. Most people come in and out, but you definitely can travel if you've got all your permits in order. If you don't have a permit yet, you will have to wait until you have that permit to show that you can re-enter Portugal. Of course, you can leave. It's about getting back in. So that's really important. Having that permit will allow you to travel and move back and forth as long as you make sure that you are a resident in Portugal and that you are here a minimum of 6 months of the year. What can you tell me about Coimbra area or other English-speaking areas? Well, Coimbra is a fantastic city. It's one of the most historic places in Portugal, and it's a university city. It's one of the oldest universities in Europe. And so it has a really thriving, youthful feeling. There are students everywhere. It's a really established international community. It's very hilly, so hopefully you like to walk up steep hills because it is very, very hilly and it takes a lot. Walking around Coimbra you're going to get good calf muscles, but it's got a great vibe. It's very friendly and it's in the center of the country. So the positive part is you're kind of like right between Lisbon and Porto, and there's the high-speed train that stops in Coimbra, so you can get to both places. Some people say as a negative is it's very hot in the summer. It is very hot just because it's just far enough inland from the coast that it doesn't get the break from the coastal weather. So it can feel substantially warmer in Coimbra than other parts of Portugal. Another thing about it that it's like a pro and a con. That same youthful vibe that you get with the university makes the housing market really tricky because rentals, especially, the students are always coming in and out. And they're, trying to snag a rental in Coimbra can be a little challenging. But it is not the only English-speaking area. The Silver Coast, which is from Peniche up to Leiria, the Leiria district, this particular area that's just about an hour to an hour and a half north of Lisbon, there's English-speaking folks all across this area. You can find fantastic communities with support services. Of course, you're in Portugal, so people speak Portuguese, but really in most of the developed areas with cities that are, larger than 25,000, you're going to find people that speak English in most of these cities. So Coimbra, Aveiro, Ovar, Porto, the Silver Coast, going on down around Lisboa, Setúbal, all of these different areas, English speaking is something that you will have available and you'll find communities that speak English. Hi, Kelsey. So the racism question, this is a really great question because the fact that you're specifically speaking towards East Asians makes it very specific, and it is a concern. Just recently, Portugal has had a massive influx of folks coming in from East Asia, and it has been difficult. They're not navigating it as easily as I think they would hope. And we've seen some real pushback from the way that it kind of happened. So Portugal has just recently made it so that you have to have a job contract before you come to Portugal and apply for a work visa. Up until a couple years ago, you could move here for a 1-year work visa. And these are jobs, when I say a work visa, these are hospitality jobs, these are agricultural jobs. These are usually jobs that pay very, very low wages because Portugal is short on labor in that sector. And they would let people move and then they could kind of apply for the visa post arrival. And they just got this influx of folks and it became an issue. And now they've made it that it requires the visa before they move here. We do have, it's a constant conversation happening in the Portuguese news about how to bring these people in and help them feel welcome. Here in our town in Alcobaça, we have a lot of East Asians that have moved here and they're lovely. They brought fantastic food with them. The restaurants are great. They're friendly. We've been able to get to know folks. And here where I live, it hasn't been an issue at all. In the bigger city in Lisbon, especially, it has been with housing being very condensed and with the area being really short on housing, they've had challenges. So I hope Portugal continue to address this and find a balance. But it has been happening more in the urban areas than in the smaller cities outside of the Lisbon area. So you've had friends traveling in Porto. What is the travel accessibility between Porto and Lisbon? It's great. There's a high-speed train that makes that one stop in Coimbra and continues on to Lisbon. It's multiple times a day. It's very, very easy to travel via train between Porto and Lisbon. I love it. I've done it a couple of times. And then the motorway system here is modern. It's open. It's so easy to navigate. Their signage is fantastic. So driving is also an option. And then the bus system here, there are plenty of buses that are very affordable that you can take that are motor coaches with Wi-Fi and bathrooms, and those move back and forth between Porto and Lisbon as well. So very, very simple. You can even fly between Porto and Lisbon if you want to, but it takes about as much time to go to the airport and get on a plane as it does to just take the train or get on a bus. All right. So I think at this point we have had about an hour of conversation, and I really, really, really hope that you felt like you have some value from this. We would love to continue to make this an option. We're going to watch our calendars and requests and see if we'll schedule another one to just gather up any additional questions. Please reach out to us. If you need something urgently, send a message through using our Contact Us form on our website. That will go directly to the team, and we will see how quickly we can answer it. If you are looking to get on the calendar and you can't find a calendar time that works for you, again, send a message. We'll see what we can do. But we really hope that this is giving you some food for thought. We want you to know that we're here through the whole process. We never charge for a consultation call. We never charge for that call. We will help you through the process, and our goal is to have you have realistic expectations about making such a big move and a big change. But if you want to do it, we're here for you to help. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.